Welcome to the Marriage in Transition podcast. We are so excited that you are with us today. Listen, this podcast is all about creating connection through change in your marriage. And we've got a great topic. It's one of my favorite topics, actually. But before we get into it, hey, if you haven't gotten the book, I want to encourage you to go to marriageintransition.com, grab the book, and I actually want to read a review from a person who purchased the book. And Jessica says, I'm in the first chapter in, and the truth bombs are dropping.
Okay.
Just in the first chapter.
That's what I'm talking about.
Explosion.
Okay. And that's what we want you guys to experience. Okay. Today, we're talking about parenting future leaders. This is going to be good, y'all.
Yeah.
Listen, your children will be shaped by your parenting style. And what we've discovered with having 3 children of our own,
Right.
Each child is unique.
Oh, my.
They come with their own set of blessings, and they come with their own set of drama.
I thought you were going to say their own instruction manual.
I wish. But the Holy Spirit will help us. He will give us guidance to raise all of our children with all of their uniquenesses. Your strategy needs to adjust to partner with God's plan for their purpose. And so Lanette and I are ready to dive deep into this thing. If y'all are ready, let's go. So today we're diving into how to parent future leaders. Now, where we're coming from with this is that you and I, from the moment that we discovered you were pregnant,
Right.
we were praying over your belly. And
Well, first we had to get over the I'm pregnant moment.
well, yeah, of course, right? You know what I mean? Because we were in high school at that time.
Yes, we were seniors.
And then, within our senior year, we graduated high school. We got married that September, and then we had our first child in December.
Right.
Right. And now
we had to grow up pretty fast.
Yeah. And then within 3 years, we had 2 other children. And so now we have 3 that are all in college, and 2 of them are about to graduate within a year.
Hallelujah.
Amen. They're almost off the payroll, right? And so we've seen in our children now, they're all serving in some way within our church.
Yep.
They're worship leaders. They are leading in different areas of encouraging other peers around them, or, raising funds to help the homeless, or, working at child care centers. Like, they're doing great things. So we're seeing them lead in areas of finance and working within their community. So we're super, super, super proud of our children. But they didn't just land there.
Yeah, they didn't
right?
just, yeah.
So there was this process of raising these leaders that they are now. And so if we rewind all the way back, I remember us praying over your belly and just speaking to what it was that we saw God was going to do in them. And then as they began to grow, one of the things that you begin to see that the Lord said to you, I want you to share a little bit about what it is that you saw.
So like you just said, 3 kids, all under 4 years old, something like that. Stay-at-home mom, crazy time of living. And so that was hard. It was really hard for me. So it was one day, I don't know, kids were doing something, and I was just overwhelmed. I was really frustrated. And I really heard the Holy Spirit whisper to me and say, I gave you leaders, now raise them as leaders. And absolutely shared that with you. And so that changed how we parented. That changed how we stewarded our kids, their giftings, what we did, how we structured our day, how we even spoke to them. It really shifted everything in our home from a parenting perspective. And so we actually started raising them as leaders. We started holding them accountable, started talking to them like they knew exactly what we were talking about.
And what you discovered is your children are extremely intelligent.
From the jump.
They're really smart. And I'll speak for our children. In some ways, they could be very manipulative. Right? And they knew how to try to win over one parent against the other.
They knew what they was doing.
And so you have to be wise as parents in understanding the uniqueness of your own child. So not everything that works for us will necessarily work for you and your family. and the age and stage that they're in. But I do believe the Bible lays out a clear blueprint of like destiny over our children.
Yes.
And it's our responsibility as parents to understand, listen, they're not finished yet.
And I think we treat them as though they are.
You know what I'm saying? You're raising a leader.
Yeah.
They are not fully formed leaders yet.
Yeah.
And so there is this, by faith, don't become stressed out, overwhelmed, frustrated, angry with yourself, feeling like a failure because they're underperforming, right? You've told them the rules, they continue to break them, or you've laid out for them the level of where they could be and they're falling short of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing we are in a lot of ways towards God, but he doesn't give up on us.
Yeah.
And so he continues to love us to health. He continues to walk with us. And so I want you to just breathe. And know that your child is not the exception to the rule, but you're raising them, and so you're sowing seed, you're watering seed, and they're going to get there.
Yeah, and it becomes a matter of developing realistic goals based on their development, and not based on what someone else's child is doing at their stage of life, or sometimes not even doctors.
Yeah.
You know your kids better than teachers. You know your kids better than some doctors.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying or telling you to ignore. Yeah. But you know the stage and the intellectual level of your child and the giftings of your child. And so I think a lot of us ignore those because we're caught up with the day-to-day of working and taking care of the home. We can push what we sense in our children on the back burner because we think we have time.
But also what happens is we may be bringing in a parenting style from the past, from our upbringing, and we're trying to impose something that our parents did for us over our children, and it may not be effective.
Right.
The reason why is because your child is a byproduct of you, but they're not you. And even though you survived what your parents put you through, it doesn't mean necessarily that that's going to work with your child.
Right.
And so it's really, really important that for each of the children that God blesses you to have, you need to be in tune with the Lord to say, okay, how do I uniquely guide my child on the path that God has for them, not the path that I'm trying to force them down? And then you humble yourself and you say, okay, let me get to know my kid. I don't want to live vicariously through them, right? And I don't want to force them to be a miniature version of me. We are trying to shape them into who it is that God has created and ordained for them to be. So how do we partner with God to raise this leader within the earth? And that requires some prayer. That requires quality time with your child. And so that being said, you said something. You said developing realistic goals based on their development, right? So when we're looking at them as infants or toddlers or in elementary school or teenagers, what are those? I just want you to give an example of when they were, this is before they started elementary school. Yeah. They were running around the house. God gave you that word. And so we sat down, we began to discuss, okay, what is it going to look like in our house? So a practical way of what that looked like.
To sum it up, what we did was we mirrored our home like a daycare center. So even though they were toddlers,
you were an at-home mom.
And I was an at-home mom, So they themselves didn't go to daycare yet, not at that age. But I put them on a schedule. So they had a certain time that they woke up, and then they had a certain time when they took nap. We did field trips, whether it was to the library, and to this day, our girls read like novels like crazy.
And our son reads stock portfolios.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah. But we did field trips, snack time, dinner time, quiet time. I even went so far as practice sitting down in church at home. Yeah. So like the church that we were going to early on didn't have youth church. Yeah. And so the kids were stuck with the parents. Yeah. And so, while I'm trying to get this word, I'll need you,
Yeah. So you're not, so basically you took control of the environment, you took control of the child, and you didn't allow the child's behavior or them acting out to then take control of your emotions and our emotions and where we were going to be able to go, sit, or do.
It became home for us, for our family, became an opportunity for practice.
Yes.
And so that meant that they were going to mess up. They weren't going to get some things right. And so it was like, okay, we're going to have to do it again, practice. Yes. And then by the time we got to a restaurant or we went to church or we went out public, they knew how to behave. And random people will come up to us and say, you have the most well-behaved
such a beautiful family.
Kids. And I'm like, are they supposed to walk around like clowns and jump off of tables?
I think people were just amazed at how the fact that, the family was, disciplined and in control.
Yeah.
But it didn't require like abuse to get them there.
Yeah.
And so when the only strategy is a belt, then you may not be building a leader. And so I want to challenge you guys to, as a couple, sit down and think through, okay, what are great leadership lessons that we want to impart to our kids? Something simple may be, hey, we're going to teach them, a system of work ethic by saying, hey, here are your chores, and here's going to be your reward at the end of the week. If you do them, this is what you get. If you don't, here's also the consequence. So you're teaching them this, but then give them the freedom to determine. This is what we did with our kids. After a while, we say, you know what, you just need to finish it by this time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't let me keep talking over them. Let me keep, on their backs, staying on their backs and saying, hey, you need to finish this by this time and do this, do that. But we left it up to the kid to learn, hey, you can determine your own schedule, because one day you're going to need to manage yourself within time. And so instead of us kind of lording over every decision that they made, we gave them freedom to choose, but we also gave them consequences if they did not follow through on that action. When they became teenagers, one of the things that we did, we took them to Dallas.
My goodness.
And we dropped them off in the middle of the city.
And gave them a physical map.
Yeah.
They could not use their phones. And we told them, hey, we're here.
Yeah.
We need to get to here. We were taking them to the aquarium.
Yeah.
And they had to get us there by foot.
Yeah.
Using a regular street map.
Yeah, and it was hilarious because they had never done that before.
The struggle was real.
Yeah, they were arguing. They had to follow all the traffic signs and all the rest of stuff. It was great. But the point was to teach them, hey, you got to navigate life. Yeah. And sometimes you're going to be challenged to do things in a place that you don't know. But hey, one day we're believing that they're going to travel the world.
Yeah.
And in order for them to navigate cities with people who don't speak the same language as them, et cetera, they need to know how to do this. Right?
I love this. One of my friends said this long time ago. She said, if you only give them one option, and if you only put a crown over their head from the time that they are born, and you tell them that one day they are supposed to fit into this crown, then they'll grow up thinking, knowing, and pursuing that they are supposed to wear that crown, and they're going to behave as such, and they're always going to reach towards that crown. Don't give them another option. Don't sow seeds of negativity into your children. Or I know sometimes it can be, especially for stay-at-home moms, or you have a larger family, and so sometimes it can be a little frustrating, and so you can sometimes speak things into your kids that really doesn't reflect who they are, and so you'll say something that you don't mean to say. But if you consistently give them the one option, and the one option is you are meant for greatness, you're meant for leadership, then they'll grow into that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would encourage couples to do as your children are moving from one stage to another, they go from, being toddlers, elementary age, and then high school, your level of discipline and style of discipline is going to have to change. It has to evolve as the child is growing, but a husband and wife need to be on the same page with how you'll discipline. Because if one parent is overly aggressive and the other one is extremely passive, or one parent is just passing the kid over to the other, then they're missing an element of character development. They need both parents to participate in the process of shaping them into who God has ordained for them to be. And so we want to encourage you guys to have the necessary conversations that say, are we in agreement on how we're going to respond to this behavior? Are we in agreement on what we're going to do if this happens? Because if you're not in agreement on it, then one of the things that may happen is that child may become a point of division within the relationship. And, parenting is a temporary assignment.
Yeah.
And you can allow a season of disciplining a child and disagreements in that season to lead to a permanent ripple within the husband and wife team. But in a few years, the child is moving out.
Well, here's the thing. The one thing you have to remember is children go through transitions as well.
Yeah.
And so just like you're having a hard time navigating transitions, they're going through high school and hormones and peer pressure and social media. So they're going through their own stages of transitions. And so it is our responsibility as parents to help them navigate through those seasons of transitions. And so one of the things that I did quite often, especially during their teenage years, is I set aside time to spend quality time with our kids one-on-one. So not together as a family. Of course, we had that. But I would sit down in my son's room just for about 15 minutes and have a conversation with him just to see how he was doing, just to see where he was. Same thing with the girls. I did the same thing because sometimes they need help navigating transitions, and they don't even recognize they're going through a transition.
But it wasn't that you were sitting down with them to necessarily discipline or chastise. This was just relationship. Yeah.
Now, another thing about transitions in the home, when the home goes through a transition, everybody goes through that same transition. So,
but responds to it differently.
Yeah. So tensions can be high. So you may be going through a transition, let's just say a job. There's been a switch in the job and the hours are more demanding. Well, that's not only affecting your marriage, but it's also affecting your children.
Relationship.
You know, that kind of happened to us. Our kids were younger in their high school years, almost elementary, middle school rather. And work was really tense for us. It was just a trying time for us. And everybody in the home was stressed. We were just all stressed. And the kids were in AP courses, so they were just stressed with regular homework. So what we did was we decided not to allow them to go to school one day. And we took them out of school. And we went somewhere, I think to the mall, or we traveled a little 45 minutes or an hour away. This was later on.
Okay.
And we just had a day to ourselves. You know what? Don't worry about anything else. We're skipping. We're
just
skipping.
gonna take off.
We're skipping school. And we just had a really good time. When you're going through a transition, you have to be aware of the climate in your home.
That's right.
And then do what you have to do in order to level that out.
Yeah, we also I was thinking about the time that we took a trip to San Antonio. It was a random night where, again, I felt that pressure rising up, and my wife and I, we were laying in bed, and I just looked over at her. I said, do you want to go out of town?
I said yes and rolled out the bed and packed a bag that night.
Like instantly, like no kidding. We're not being, goofy with it. She literally got out of the bed instantly, packed up. And it was a tight financial time and all of that, but we could just sense, we needed a break. So we took the family, and that was actually one of the best family trips that we had. And it was so memorable for our kids. But I think for them, it also taught them that, I value education and the educational system, but more than anything was the overall mental and physical and spiritual health of our family. And so if we needed that break, take that break. If you need to change how you're disciplining, if you need to adjust, are you having quality conversations with your kids? You need to recognize that. But too often, I think we're just going through the ebb and flow of life, and we're not taking time to evaluate like where we are. If you're having a relational impasse with one of your kids, and it's just been, tense, and it seems that you guys are bumping heads, I would encourage you to kind of step back for a moment, take a breather, and just assess, like, how can I love them through this moment? Like, how can I just love them, right? It's not about, and this isn't, I'm not trying to encourage tolerance of inappropriate behavior.
But getting to the root of the behavior.
Right, 100%. And sometimes in order to deal with the fruit, which may be disrespect, it may be a rebellious attitude or poor performance academically, you may be dealing with those are surface things. What's at the core of that child and what's going on? Remember, that's a future leader. The test that they failed this week, the semester where they struggled in their grades, that's not going to last always. I don't remember any test that I took my freshman freshman year in high school. I don't remember anything from junior high. It's all a blur.
I don't think we could teach our kids once they got to like, I don't know, grades.
Yeah,
Seventh grade or something like
I guess what I'm saying is it seems so urgent, so important. And some social studies teacher sent a report to my parent about something that was the end of the world because I was struggling with a class. I'd be like, come on, guys. Now, all these years later, I don't remember any of it, and it really didn't matter at the end of the day. And so there are things that I think sometimes we get so intense about that are actually, it's just a small stepping stone in the grand scheme of their lives. And if you're so angry with their failure in a small season, you're missing the greater assignment, which is to shape them for a future where this little season, it only should have been a time to water or to plant another seed. And we missed the entire moment because we were so fueled by disappointment, so fueled by our anger or resentment towards them, or so distracted by our own agenda that we forgot that we had this assignment, that we only get 18 years realistically to pour into them as much as we can while we can.
And remember, you're teaching them how to navigate through transitions. So what you do, they're going to mimic when they get older. And so if they see you frantic and stressed out and panicked and overwhelmed, then when they have a season very similar to yours, they're going to mimic what they've been seeing. And so I would just encourage every parent out there, you're not going to be perfect.
Nope.
Let's just say that from the jump.
I'm
you're
not a perfect parent.
Yeah. We have made
My name is
so
Sean,
many mistakes.
and I'm not a perfect parent.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
So it's like, it's okay. What I would say, and one of the things that I made an effort was my rebound. When I didn't do it right, when I didn't say it right, Holy Spirit convicted me and said, Lanette, you could have handled that a little better. And so what I did was I turned around and I had a conversation with the kiddo and I said, I'm sorry for acting like that. Here's my heart. And that is not an easy thing to do.
No, but that's the mature thing to do. And that's teaching them one of the greatest lessons that you ever can. And I find that to be so powerful. Well, look, guys, if this has really helped you all, we want to give you a free resource. It's a PDF discussion guide that you can download from xomarriage.com/transition. And this will help to fuel the right conversations between you and your spouse that'll help you guys come up with strategic partnerships to help discipline and to lead your children to the next level through any transitions that you guys are facing. Again, if you all have not gotten Marriage in Transition, go to marriageintransition.com.
Get the book.
Grab a hold to the book. Leave a review of the podcast. And we appreciate you guys being with us on this journey. We look forward to the next episode.